Okay, welcome to the metamorphosis. My lips are all red. Look at that. I don't know what's going on there. Welcome. We are alive. We are still learning. It's a wonderful, wonderful process this is.
It is. It sure is. Oh my gosh.
I am going to move our talking points over so that I don't accidentally close out our live like I just did. We are live. We are still learning.
Yep. Yep,
It's a
yep, yep.
wonderful, wonderful
Let me mute
process
this.
is. It is. It sure is. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
I am going to
Too funny. Okay. We're live. Yay.
All right, welcome to the Metamorphosis Project podcast with Tenya and Ava. I am a energy healer and a self-care coach. My business is Design Your Existence. I'm really flubbing up this whole introduction thing.
Hey, this is all about showing what self-care techniques we're using for stress. And so
Yeah.
I think what a great way to amplify the message is by doing it imperfectly.
But it happened the way that it's supposed to happen because for me, everything is perfect in its own way. Perfection only comes from the judgment of others. It does. It doesn't come from it may come from us, but where do those beliefs of what perfect is, where does that come from? It comes from what we were taught, from what we were told is perfect.
Yes, absolutely. And so let me introduce myself. I'm Eva Zobian Wolf, and my business is Eva Z Wellness. I am a nurse educator and a yoga therapist. And I find that one of the biggest obstacles for people is this idea of perfection, because in a yoga practice, or even before they come to a yoga practice, they have this idea that they need to be perfect when they show up, or they need to perfectly execute a posture in yoga. And quite frankly, that's missing the whole entire point.
I am guilty of that. I'm completely guilty of not going to a class because I didn't know it all. I didn't want to do something wrong. My biggest fear is always that I'm going to hurt myself if I do it wrong. Right?
Okay, say more about that.
Yeah, so I don't want to hurt myself because I want to continue doing the thing, but not going, but thinking I'm going to hurt myself by not doing the proper form is what's preventing me from going.
Okay,
I know
so
there's a lot to unpack there.
there is. And thank you for bringing this up, because let's pull it back, because a lot of what happens in energy work is also what's happening in yoga. We do these practices to be able to establish a deeper relationship with ourselves, right? Our relationship with ourselves is our most important relationship. It dictates how we interact with others, and it dictates how we interact with ourselves. Those practices are about deepening your understanding and your knowing of you. And so,
I don't mean to yawn. It's just you're talking about this stuff and it's clearing from me. Like those
good.
beliefs are like, are they playing?
Well, Gypsy knocked over my husband's bike wheel,
Oh,
and the other dog went to go inspect it. And of course, Gypsy's like, don't touch it, don't touch it, the big sister. So let me move that just real quick.
sure, go ahead. This is what happens when you go live. You get all kinds of fun stuff.
So the little culprit, the 8-month-old puppy,
Aw.
is hiding behind mom.
Oh, hi. Hey, puppy. What's his name?
This is Lunar.
Lunar. Hi,
Thank you for
Lunar.
the kiss.
Oh,
Thank you. And
hi.
he's even got the pretty sip.
Yep. And he's 8 months old.
He's 8 months old.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So, can you behave while we talk? Maybe?
So how well are you managing that stress there? Pretty well, it looks like.
You know, we're using a lot of the meet them where they are.
Yeah.
The other day, we were talking about something, and my husband said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he chewed this up." And I went, "Really? You can't believe that the 8-month-old puppy chewed up
Right.
that thing?" And he went,
Right.
"Good point."
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's that reminder of what do you expect an 8-month-old puppy to be able
Hmm.
to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of people have very high expectations as far as and I'm guilty of it as well. When my kids were little, I definitely expected them to behave a certain way when they were 3 or 4. I probably expected them to behave like what a 7 or 8 year old would behave like, you
Same.
know. And it's just because we are so ingrained with um these 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 expectations that we get from our parents or from society, and not realizing that we really need to put ourselves in their shoes. There was this one, I can't even remember what the subject was about, but it was something that my son was asking about, and my husband was like, how does he not know this? And I'm like, well, have we ever taught him about it? Like, have we ever had a discussion with him about this exact subject? Not a like subject, not something similar, but like this subject. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. I said, so how can we expect him to know how to handle this if we've never taught him how to handle this? I mean, there comes a point where as an adult, you become an adult and you grow up and you learn that you can figure some things out. But our brains are not fully formed until we're what, like 25 or 26.
Yep, exactly.
So my twins still have a year before their brains are fully formed, and they are out there living adult lives.
Exactly. And it's different for men and women as well,
Yeah.
too, because we know that men mature
Slower.
slower. I was trying to
That's a
find
nice way.
a
It's a,
kind,
it's an okay way to say that.
yeah,
They do. They mature at a slower rate than women. I keep shaking my desk, than women do. Um, and I think that's why a lot of women gravitate towards dating older men, because they're I honestly, and I don't know the science behind it, but I honestly think there's like a 4 to 5 year maturity gap. And that's
okay.
why we we date guys who are 4 to 5 years older than us.
Well, probably because a lot of the nurturing expectations are placed on girls. Take care of your siblings, take care of this person,
Yep.
make sure that you do this, you do that. And girls are raised to put other people's
Needs first.
happiness and needs
Yep.
before their own.
Yeah.
Whereas boys, oh,
Or not.
boys will be boys. You can do whatever you want.
Yep.
And so, yeah, they don't mature as quickly because we don't expect them to.
Right. Right. And that can lead into higher stress levels. Having
Absolutely.
having to take care of everybody but you.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that one of the biggest obstacles, so coming full circle around to just going to a yoga class, going to a movement class, going to a massage appointment, whatever it is, women have a harder time in making those commitments because do I really have time for that? Do I really
Right.
need that? Do I really, can I spend that money? Because it's considered a luxury.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But yet there are a lot of men, I think, that also have a hard time doing that.
Yes.
It's for men, I think doing different things to manage their stress that have historically been geared towards women. They don't want to do. And I think for a lot of men as well, if it requires more work on their part, they also shy away from doing it.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, men are, and I'm not saying it's 100, it's like 50, I'm not even sure like what percentage it would be, but in my world, in my awareness, the man of the family, the male, the husband is usually the one who is making more money.
Can
And
be. Yeah.
so and so when he comes home, if he doesn't want to do all of the housework stuff because he's worked all day and he's paying most of the bills. And that is, I think, just a subconscious societal belief that men have. And it's I'm not this is not a bash on men. This is not a I'm not, this is not what that is. It's just in my world, this is how it plays out. And I think a lot of women feel that way, even if they are working full time and they're not making the same amount as their spouse or more, they tend to have to pick up the slack at home. And
Absolutely.
and that is incredibly stressful.
Right, because it's two full-time jobs. You're working outside of the house in a full-time job and working at managing the
Yeah.
house, managing the bills, managing the groceries, managing the family
Yep.
schedules.
Yep.
That in
Yeah.
itself is a full-time job.
Yeah. It's not just dishes and bath time and bedtime. There's so much more to it than that.
Absolutely. And the stress that comes from that, and that you bring up a really good point. So it's stress on both sides in a relationship. You
Hmm.
know, you've got one spouse is working outside the home and one spouse may be working outside the home, but may have the primary caregiver role.
Right.
That in itself, and again, that in itself is a job that we don't give enough credence to
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
because there's so many aspects to that. And then, you sit there and you think, okay, you're doing all of these things. I was watching a reel the other day, and it was kind of what you were alluding to is, the man says, "Hey, I'm holding the baby, or I need to do something. I need to load the dishwasher. Can you hold the baby while I load the dishwasher?" And then you see all of these other images of the woman holding the baby and folding clothes
Yeah.
and vacuuming and cooking, like doing all of these things while holding the kid.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I said something to a doctor friend of mine the other day, and my daughter needed to take her blood pressure. And she's like, I just, I don't know. I need to go somewhere to get my blood pressure taken. And I was like, well, do you have a blood pressure cuff? Because you can take your own blood pressure. And she's like, I can? How would I do that? And when I was talking to my doctor friend, she was like, yeah, leave it to a nurse. She's like, the innovative ways that you guys think of how to do things is just mind blowing. She's like, I feel like sometimes nurses just have a deeper experience and knowledge of the application of certain things.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, yeah, because we've had to make do with what we have and yet still get crap done.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with whoever's at home with the kids or whoever's the major
Caregiver.
responsibility of
Right.
being the caregiver, whether they're working at home or working outside of the home, they're still having to try to figure out how do I navigate all of these things.
Yeah.
And the amount of stress that that creates when there's not an appreciation for the amount of work that's done.
Hmm.
I mean, our society has this way of viewing people, especially women, with a lot of judgment, whether they're a stay at home mom or a working mom.
Yeah.
Either way,
Someone who
they're going to
works
get
at home.
judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you work at home, there's a whole nother, there's a whole nother level. And with the go back to work, I live in the Washington D.C. area, and so 20% of the federal government lives in Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware area. And with the back going back to work, mothers who have been working from home, working remotely since COVID. Now, this is 5 years. 5 years they've been working from home. They now have to find childcare or everybody's back to work now. So they've had to find childcare for these kids who have never been in childcare. And from my understanding, I can't say for sure, but you it's so difficult to have to choose between your kids and job. And in this day and age, you have to have a two-income family to pay rent, to have a mortgage, to survive. We're not even thinking about thriving right now. People are just trying to survive. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, so you've got all that stress at home that you have to contend with. And then you have stress on the roads going to and from work, road rage,
Oh my gosh.
right? And then um you've got work stress, reports that are due, managers or bosses that really have no compassion for you being human.
Oh yeah. Having a
Um,
life outside of work.
yeah, yeah. You're a nurse, so there's the stress of I started watching The Pit on HBO Max.
I have
Okay, it
not
is
seen that yet, but I've
it's
seen clips of it and oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's like ER on steroids.
Yeah, but more truthful. Like I've heard that a lot of medical providers that have watched it have been amazed at how honest and
Yeah.
realistic it is.
That's great. I have to just off topic. My favorite line so far, I think, in the whole thing was this one lady was talking about this other lady's son who was wearing a mask, or this she wanted her son to wear a mask, and he's like, "Oh no, it's allergies, and masks don't work. We don't need them. All this stuff, right?" She punches the lady who wants her son to wear a mask. She gets her tooth caught in her hand and she has to go to surgery. And the doctor's like, okay, so masks. You're okay with them not wearing masks during your surgery, or should they? And I was just like, yes, that that
Yes,
is what that is what needed to be on every poster during COVID.
yes,
Like
yes. Oh my
my
gosh.
that was
Yeah.
my favorite line out of the entire season that we're watching so far. Um, but if that is what like anything, any that is so high stress, an emergency room, so high stress.
Yeah. I
And
was just
and
having, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just having a conversation the other day with a former ER doctor, and we were talking about, I had to renew my CPR last week. And we were talking about the number of times that we've gone in to renew our CPR, and how at this point we're just kind of like meh, 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 right? It's just like, okay, yeah, I've got it. And it's always funny because it's how finicky is the mannequin.
Right.
And we were going through that, and somebody was listening to the conversation, and they asked about um, our experience giving CPR. And I said, well, the very first time that I gave CPR, it was on a 90-year-old lady. And as soon as I started pressing, I heard bones crunching.
Oh,
And they were all just kind of like, wait, what? That happens? And I'm like, oh, that happens a lot. CPR is painful.
hmm
I mean, think about it. You've got, and I'm not a lightweight, but I'm also probably one of the smaller people that was on the different code teams that I was on. And usually it was somebody a foot taller than me and weighs a little bit more than me that's sitting there pressing all of their weight onto somebody's chest to get the 2 inches to get full recoiled so that we're pumping the blood, we're pushing the medication, but it's got to be circulated through the body.
right.
And so we were like, yeah, CPR is, it's traumatic for the people, right? It's traumatic for the person that's getting CPR performed on them. It's
Right.
traumatic for the family members watching all of this happen to
Yeah,
their family member. And then it's
absolutely.
traumatic for the people giving CPR,
Yep.
because I've done that for almost 2 hours before.
Oh my gosh.
And, it's just, when you have something where it's like, okay, they're back. Wait, no, they're not. They're back. No, they're not.
Right.
Um, and in that moment, the only thing that we want is for the good outcome for the person, whatever that outcome may be, whether it be for them to transition peacefully
Right.
with some dignity
Right.
or for them to live.
Yeah.
And anything in between, you're going, did we help? Right? And so, yeah, when it comes to stress, it's stressful on everybody in that room. And it's stressful even to the people on the floor in that space, because they're like, wait, this stuff happens for real? Like, what's going on? Could that happen? Is that going to happen to my family member? Is that going to happen to me at some point
Right.
in my life?
Absolutely could.
And yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so there is stress everywhere.
Yes.
You step out, there's stress in your home, there's stress outside of your home. So not only do you create, and I don't say that lightly, but we do create our own stress by not preparing, by not um learning to manage our stress. We do create our own stress, and I think we also call it in. Being an energy healer, um all of these things that come into our life that cause us stress, we've called in. We've asked all of this stuff to become our reality. And with that, you also can feel when other people are under stress because you
So
feel their energy.
say a little bit more about, because I know exactly what you're talking about when you say that we call it in, but
Mhm.
say a little bit more on that for people that are like, what do you mean I call it in? Like, I don't want
Yeah.
this in my life.
Yeah. No, the flat tire that somebody gets on the way to work, they call that in. They may not specifically call in, I really want to get a flat tire this morning. It's not like they're doing that. What they're doing is an hour before, 8 hours before, a week before, they're like, God, I really need some time off of work. I really need a break. I'm so tired of work. I don't want to go. I just hate it. Boom. flat tire so you don't have to go to work. But now you have to pay for a tire. So this is why it's so important to pay attention to your words. Joking or not, the universe does not hear inflection. What it hears is how you're feeling. It feels that frequency you're sending out. Even if in passing someone says, "How are you doing?" "Oh, I feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
I hate work. Life sucks." You know what? Life is going to keep sucking. And it's not a fake it till you make it. That doesn't work either. You've got to look at your life and you've got to find those things, those moments that you can see going well for you and focus on those. Focus on the gratitude of having a job. It may not be the job you want. You may not like your boss. You may not like your coworkers, but focus on being grateful for having a job. Be grateful for what you're learning at that job that will give you the knowledge to move to a different job at another point.
And I want to even expand on that a little bit, because even in the moments when life sucks, there are lessons that are meant for us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So even like expanding on the flat tire a little bit, it may have been, yeah, it could have been, I asked for an opportunity, I asked for a break, I asked for some time. I just want time to myself. Hey, guess what? You're sitting on the side of the road. What do you have? You have time for yourself.
Yep.
But also, it could have been the universe stepping in and saying there was going to be an accident a mile down the road, and we're preventing you from being in that spot at that moment.
Yep. Yep.
So, in that flat tire example, how do we look at that and say, well, I don't know what I was supposed to learn or what I was supposed to see, but yeah, thanks for either showing me or providing for me or
Right.
keeping me safe,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, we call it all in. We do.
Yep.
So how can we manage our stress? That's always the big question. I'm so busy, I don't have time for blank. I hear all the time, I can't do blank. I've tried blank and it doesn't work.
Oh, I hear that one. I hear that one a lot with meditation and
Yep.
with yoga.
Yep.
And again, this coming back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, it's this expectation that if I can't do it and do it at the level of what I see on TV or what I see when I think of what a person who's meditating looks like,
Mm-hmm.
then I must not be good at it and it must not be for me.
Right.
Because we've got this idea of perfection and not recognizing that when we see this person that's sitting there meditating for 45 minutes on a mountaintop, that person has been meditating for decades.
Decades, yes. Yes. When at the core, at the root, the anchor of meditation for human beings, the normal, everyday human being, meditation is about you controlling your thoughts, not your thoughts controlling you.
Yes.
And it's not about connecting to source. It's not about seeing visions. It's not about that. It is about giving yourself time and space to decompress, to reset, to learn what is it that your body's telling you. Someone's got an itch.
Yep. Little man, all the problems are little man. He's got
And you
all
know
the
what?
personality.
Animals don't stress out very much.
No. And when they do, they have signals to let you know that they're under stress, right?
Yeah.
So um, speaking of the puppy, he likes to sit in the front window and just look outside. We call that his Gladys moment, right? Like Gladys Kravitz, remember
Yep.
her from one of the
Yep.
older shows? So we call it, he's Gladys and he's sitting up there and he just kind of watches. And anytime he's now gotten to the point that anytime that he barks, it's because there is actually somebody standing out on the
Hmm.
sidewalk in the road.
Yeah.
And I go over there, say, okay, great, thank you. And then he's done. He's fine.
Yeah. He just wants you to know that someone's out there.
Yep.
Like, hey.
But at the same time, when they're needing something, they say something.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like right
So
now,
what are,
he's jumping at the back door telling me, I need to go out.
so what are some signs of being under stress for us as humans?
Okay, so great question. Um, how are you showing up? Like, which version of you is showing up? Are you patient? Are you kind? Are you, and if, the opposite, are you being snarky? Are you being pissy?
Hmm.
Are you being short tempered?
Yeah.
And then even more so, how are you sleeping? That's just a huge indicator right there because we can say, well, I'm sleeping fine. Okay, how much sleep are you getting right now versus how much you normally get? Because if you're oversleeping, that's an indication of stress. If you're
Right.
undersleeping, that's an indication of stress.
Yep.
If you're having difficulty falling asleep, that's an indication of stress.
Hmm.
Are you waking up multiple times throughout the night?
Yep.
And then what's your energy level? Do you feel like you've got enough energy or do you have a dragging point in the day?
Yeah.
And then where's your breath? This was a huge one. When I learned this, I was flabbergasted. If you pay attention to where breath is moving in your body and you only feel it moving in your chest, there's likely a lot of activity in your head.
Hmm.
If
Because it
breath
should be
is
coming from your belly.
yes. And the thing is if you've got breath coming all the way down into the belly, is it because you're calm or is it because you're incredibly sluggish and lethargic?
Hmm.
So it's not just where's breath moving, but how do you feel?
Right.
And then you can use breath to create change. So
Yeah.
something as simple as box breathing, breath of joy, breath of fire, or just breathing in and breathing a long, slow breath out.
Yeah.
And again, it depends on what you need. If you're already doing a lot of belly breathing, but you feel lethargic, don't do more belly breathing.
Right.
Then
Other,
you want more activity.
yeah, other symptoms of stress are going to be digestive issues.
Yes, constipation or the opposite.
Yep. Muscle pain, lower
Absolutely.
back, hips, shoulder blades, shoulders, neck, headaches,
Jaw.
jaw headaches. Um, there's also having a short temper,
Hmm.
kind of just like having the FU button at the ready.
Road rage. I
Yep.
mean, that is something really basic. If the way somebody is driving on the highway really bothers you that much, that's not a them problem. That's a
Right.
you problem.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You get stuck
Because
behind someone who's going the speed limit and you don't go the speed limit, take a breath, figure out how to go around them and move on. If you can't go around them, it's a message for you to slow down.
yes,
You know,
yes,
we are such fast moving beings that we really do need, and we have to slow down, and when you slow down, you need to slow down more. there is a period of time where, um, being in the energy world, there's always people who are like, oh, let me give you a reading. Oh, let me do this. Let me tell you this. And they're always like, oh, you got to slow down. I'm like, if I slow down anymore, I'm going to be a frickin' sloth. But I really had to stop and take a look at that and be like, what is it? Where is it that I need to slow down? And that was really an eye opener for me because I have a very easy going life. I am incredibly privileged to have the life that I have, that I can slow down whenever I want to. It's not just a need, but whenever I want to, I can slow down. And most people do not have that option. And so they need to bring in tricks that they can use. That, are you okay?
Yeah, let me let the dog out real
Yeah, go
quick.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Like, you don't know what to talk about when your co-host goes away. Tips and tricks for stress relief. There's laughter yoga.
I love laughter yoga. Absolutely love, yeah, laughter yoga.
um, but in an environment where you can't just laugh unconditionally, right? You can't be in the middle of a meeting and go because they're going to look at you and go, what's so funny? Right? So breathing is a great one that you can do when
Yes.
you are in a stressful situation. Again, the 4 in, 4 out. I recently learned about reverse breathing or backwards breathing, where you breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose. But from what I understand is it's not used to help decompress you.
I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's more of it because they say that it can actually activate, I think, the sympathetic nervous system, which would make you like hyperventilate. But I think if you do it slow, that it can still calm you. And I think because it is not a normal breathing technique, that it gets you have to stop and think.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one of the things I've been doing more is using breath of fire in the mornings. And in that, the active portion of the breath is the exhale. And
Hmm.
you're really forcefully using the abdominal muscles as you breathe to expel the breath. And you're doing it in a really quick,
Right,
rapid
right,
fire way.
right.
And it's meant to burn off. Yeah, it's very invigorating. You don't want to do it first thing, or you don't want to do it before going to bed because it's going to be a really fire building,
Right.
sympathetic activating, energizing breath. It's not
Yeah.
calming, but it will create calm over the long use of it. Because what it's doing is bringing balance into your body, but it's also really clearing out the circulation system by moving lymph, moving
Yeah.
blood. So all of these have a specific use. So using that particular breathing technique, using it in a way that is intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it helps to trick the brain. It's just like when you are when you have anxiety creeping up and you're like, what can I see? What can I touch? What can I smell? It brings you back into that present moment. And I think that's what that reverse breathing, if you do it slow enough, you're not doing it fast, because I think doing it fast would definitely probably could start you to hyperventilate. Um, but it brings you into the moment and you're like, I can only do this one thing.
Yes.
You don't have to multitask.
Yes.
So we have breathing and then we have grounding exercises. Now, this one, a lot of people find difficult because they think the only way they can ground is by putting their feet in the ground, like putting it on grass or, sand, or they'll go out and stand in the street. First of all, if you're standing on asphalt, you're not grounding.
Yeah.
Not in a grounding sense. You're not grounding because asphalt has rubber in it, and so therefore you can't ground. Um, I I have a grounding device that you can actually plug into the earth. And if you have shoes on and you push the button, it'll tell you you're not grounded. If you take off your shoes or you're wearing grounding shoes, you push the button, it'll tell you that you're grounded.
Oh, wow.
I love this because I've been able to check my grounding sheets to make sure that I'm grounded.
Yeah.
Anything that, I run my hand underwater and I'm grounded. It's such a cool device if you need, like, I'll drop the link for it from the grounding doctor. It's not what her name is, but it's where I got it. I'll put that in the show notes because it's a very cool device when you're not sure if you're grounding. I should try to use it when I'm actually doing like a grounding meditation and
Yeah.
see if it does show. That would be very cool.
Does
Anyway,
it ground over time or just in that moment?
just in that moment.
Okay.
It's just in that moment, are you grounded?
Okay.
My guess is possibly because of it energetically grounding, which is the easier for me. It's the easiest way to ground. That scientific device probably won't work as well. But I'm willing to try it. I'm willing
Yeah.
to test it out to see if it works. Um, but yes, putting your feet on the earth, in sand, on concrete is going to help you to physically ground. But then we also have, like I said, grounding meditations, grounding visualization. You can imagine yourself grounding. And what that does is it helps you to slow your breath. And slowing your breath grounds you.
Walking through nature, walking in the park.
Yeah. Touching trees. Hug a tree is not just a
Yes.
slogan.
Oh my gosh, we were just talking about this before we started, that the reason I'm in this space with the dogs and all the craziness is there's a tree that's being dug out of our driveway, and the workers are out there chopping away at this tree. And before they started that, I walked up to the tree and I was just like, "Hey, friend, thanks for being in our life." And my husband just looked at me and started laughing. He goes, "You're such a tree hugger." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, he needs to know that I'm
He
grateful
helped.
he was here with us."
Yeah. He gave us oxygen.
Yep. And then I got to try to
Absolutely.
figure out who's going to go into that spot
Yeah.
once we get all that work done, and provide shade and oxygen from now on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the grounding is such an easy practice that I don't think we give it enough. We don't, one of the things I think really where this gets lost is we think it's too simple to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're not recognizing just how valuable these really simple, free practices are in terms of doing something for our mental health and our physical health.
Yeah.
Because that's
Absolutely.
the big component of it. We're doing it for our mental health, but physically, this is reducing inflammation in our body.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, it's lowering our blood pressure, lowering our heart rate, lowering the amount of inflammatory chemicals that are circulating in our body.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where, again, meditation comes in and is so beneficial because you can do your 10-minute meditation in the morning. You can use it as a grounding practice. You can use it as a breath practice. And it's free. And you can do it anywhere.
Yes. Yes.
Everything that, or I would say 99% of what we mentioned today is absolutely free for you to learn how to do.
Oh, yeah.
You were born with being able to do all of these things. But we've given our power away to other people who say, no, 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 no. That doesn't work.
Or why would you do that? It's such woo-woo stuff.
Right, right. So with grounding, we also have energetic shielding.
This is a
This is
huge
my
one.
favorite.
This is huge.
This is my all-time favorite thing to do to help through stressful situations when other people are involved.
Mm.
Because not only can you shield yourself, and it's very easy to shield. So every day I step into an energetic hazmat suit that's made out of diamonds.
Nice.
So for me, I know my subconscious knows that a hazmat suit is going to help protect me against toxins, and those toxins are being other people's energy. Diamonds are one of the hardest stones that is out there, and so that's going to reflect what anybody puts out, and it's going to send it back to them. But I've also infused my diamonds with the ability to transmute those energies into love and peace,
Ha.
into love and gratitude. So when it sends it back as unconditional love.
Love it. So, today is, I think, either National or International Day of Joy and Generosity.
I did not know that. I did know it
Yes.
was the first day of spring.
Yes. And so, yeah, happy spring.
Happy spring.
But when we do these things and we're doing them to protect ourselves, doing it with joy and generosity, that generous, because you can do it and just say, okay, I'm just going to reflect all the energy,
Right.
but doing it by saying, okay, I'm not going to accept that energy, but I am going to heal it before it gets sent back to you.
Yep. Yeah. Because then you're not putting negative stuff back out there.
Yes.
So energy cannot be destroyed. So anybody who tells you that they are getting rid of whatever it is they're clearing, they're getting rid of it, they're not. They're just moving it out. They're transmuting it, but what are they transmuting it into?
Yes.
Right? I don't think a lot of people take that into account. What are they transmuting all of these energies into that they're clearing out? And if they are, I am so glad that you are, because we need more joy and generosity out in the world. So when you put on your shield, when you want to protect yourself on an energetic level, put that extra thing in there saying, whatever comes at me, my shield is going to transmute it into joy and generosity. I love that. I'm going to change mine to joy and generosity because I love that.
Absolutely. Yay. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
So,
anytime I send Reiki to somebody, I will extend it and say, okay, send Reiki to them, and I'll give a time limit and say send Reiki to them until midnight or until 6 in the morning, whatever it is. Any excess that they don't need, send it into the earth.
yeah. You can also send it to anybody who may need it, because they can accept, their higher selves can accept it if it's in their highest and good.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
sending it to the earth also it grows back.
Yep.
It definitely it grows back. So that's beautiful. I love that. So if you're watching, easy way to put on your shield is just hand on your heart, take a breath. You're gonna say, I'm gonna say my diamond hazmat suit, which is going to protect me. It's going to allow negative and positive energies out, and it's going to allow positive energies in. Anything that comes at me is reflected back to the sender with joy and generosity.
Mm.
And you can use any material. So you can use obsidian, you can use rose quartz, you can use um, hematite, whatever crystal, or you can even use steel if you want to. You can use armor. It's up to you. Use your imagination. But you will find over time, you'll have to repeat putting this shield on in the beginning, maybe several times a day. But it will gradually last longer and longer. And so, but you'll be able to notice when that shield is starting to come down and you need to reinstate it, because you're training your subconscious to keep the shield on, to put the shield on, and to help protect you. So, but yeah, what else
And I
was I gonna
definitely
say?
recommend that to all of my I teach in yoga teacher trainings as well. And I recommend that to all of my students, because as you walk in, when you're getting ready to teach a class, there's a lot of energy that's coming at you, and having that protection. And this is, we've talked about how important it is as energy workers to have that barrier there, because we don't want to absorb all of the energy that we're working with.
Right.
But this is also something for really anybody in any situation, especially people that are working in areas where there's a high emotional turbulence.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be in a hospital, but it could also be in a corporate situation where there's a lot of energy bashing.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. How are you doing on time? Are you okay? Because we're only at like number 3.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Let me double check and make sure that the dogs haven't ran off into the neighborhood, and I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. Hello. Elevator music? What kind of elevator music should we do? Oh gosh. I'm thinking do 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 do. And the thing with live is you can't edit it, so I can't even edit this out.
That's true. That's true. So thank you for your patience with that. Little man's out sunbathing, and the bulldog was like, okay, I've had enough sunshine. I'm done.
There you go. All right, so with the energetic shielding, you also have cord cutting.
Hmm.
If you find yourself feeling, and for those people who don't understand what cords are, these are just invisible strings, ropes, umbilical cords that are attached from you to other people, and things can go from one to another in between, but there's like a direct connection between you and somebody else. I've actually found cords that come from one person and they have split into different, like there were there are cords from this one cord. So you can visually cut those cords as well. Just close your eyes. Whatever you imagine this cord being is what it is. Like I said, it could be a ribbon, it could be a kite string, it could be so many different things, but it is whatever comes into your mind as to what it is. And see yourself cutting it, either with a pair of scissors, chopping it off, or whatever. But double check to make sure it's not regenerating as well. And how you ask that is ask yourself, is this cord regenerating? And whatever the first answer you get is the answer. And then this might be the point where if you're not versed in how to cut regenerating cords, you might need to reach out to a practitioner like Eva or myself to help to cut those cords. Anything on cord? You got anything on cord cutting you want to add?
A lot of times I like to go in and heal the cord, heal the space where the
Mhm.
cord was attached, but then also send healing back to the other end of wherever it was that it was attached. And that helps with that prevention of
Yeah,
the regeneration.
good.
And again, remember, it's only showing up because it's at its time for it to be severed.
Right, right. And don't worry about who the cords are attached to. They are on their own journey and they whenever it comes up for them, they need to cut those cords. Even though it's not going to be attached to you, that cord could move to somebody else.
Yep.
So it's on the other person's journey that has to deal with that. So everybody has to be willing to cut their own cords.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, yeah, those are some really great practices. And then you can use that shield after the cord cutting as a way of um, preventing those energies from reasserting
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to add different layers to your shields. Like I shield, like you might step into your hazmat suit, and that's going to protect you, say 95% of the time. But to be fair, we all have fences, right? Think of these fences that you have up around your yard. When we first moved into our first house, we had a fence that was wooden on the front. So we had very close together picket fence that had little space in between each one. But then around the back of the house, we had chain link, and chain link has very big openings. So that shield in front of our house would protect anything that was bigger than that could not get through that slit, right? But if they went around the other side and they saw a gap or a hole in my shield and my fence, they could get through. And so it's the same thing. There are some very strong energies that will be able to penetrate your shield. And so it's important when you feel those energies coming in, put your shield back on, but then you can institute a secondary layer going, I add a second layer to prevent so and so from reaching out to me, from energetically reaching out to me. And that takes practice as well to keep that strong. But sometimes people's energy is much stronger than our shield.
Yes.
And that's where boundaries come in.
Yes.
We have to do not just the energetic work, but we have to do the conscious work as well.
And that's a big component of it because, we're talking about how do you reduce stress in your life? How do you reduce stress in your body? Well, in some of that, it's the way that we interact with people and having those boundaries of saying, here's an example. Say no to someone, and then that's it. No.
Yeah.
Because our tendency is, well, I need to tell you why I'm saying no. Or on the other end, asking for, well, what do you mean no? Why can't you do it? And expecting that we are owed an explanation. So a
Mm-hmm.
boundary is something as simple as just saying, no, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is hard. It is so hard to just say no and shut up. I had a call the other day, and I have to learn myself. I have to learn how to shut up sometimes, because I totally talked myself out of something that could have been very beneficial for me because I didn't stop talking.
Same, totally same.
It'll all work out, but yeah, just hearing just no is just like your mind starts to go like, what? Well, why did they say no? Do they not like me? Because we've been given reasons our entire life why someone can't do something, or
Oh
we've given
yeah,
reasons.
absolutely. And I mean, in this situation, okay, here's an example: calling in sick to work.
Mm-hmm.
Calling in sick to work, the I believe there's a federal law that says your employer can't ask you why you're calling in. However, the hospital that I worked for demanded to
Mm-hmm.
know why you were calling in. And I'm like, you guys can't actually ask this question, but it's an at-will state. And so they're like,
Right. Yeah.
okay, we can fire you for not coming in or not giving a reason.
Yep.
Um, or we can fire you for something else, but this is the reason, like,
Right.
so, when you call in sick and you're like, well, this is what's happening. And that extends into a lot of different ways, right? So, the guilt that comes with that when you're like, oh, well, I can't pick up an extra shift. I feel like I need to tell you why I'm letting you down by not coming in and working extra.
Right. Right. Yeah. And
Um,
then you feel guilty for calling out because you've shortchanged them for that day. Um, but again, we're not responsible for that. And
right?
unless they say, hey, if you need to call out sick, you need to find coverage or you need to come in. I've had jobs like that. And it's like, okay, but what if I can't find coverage and I'm throwing up every half hour?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody
Like,
wants a nurse taking care of them that it's throwing up every half hour.
no, nobody wants anybody who is sick coming into work because you're going to be getting paid for not doing, well, I take that back. If you're going into work, you should absolutely get paid and do the best you can for that day. And if
Right.
the best you can do is not good enough for them, then they should have let you stay home.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing is, how is that a supportive environment? If something as basic as you're sick, stay at home and heal
Yeah.
so that when you do come to work, you're coming back to work at 100%.
Right. Yeah.
The opposite of that. And then, you know, just in our interactions with people, having that boundary of what is happening to me is happening to me, and what's in my life is in my control, or what's happening in me is in my control. And recognizing that in somebody else, recognizing, and so this is a big part of it, is what's happening with you has nothing to do with me, right? And so if you say, Eva, I can't make it to our meeting next Thursday, there could be a whole lot of reasons, right? It could be I have a conflicting appointment. It could be so many reasons, right? Like there's so many reasons that could be happening that the possibilities are literally endless.
Right.
But if in my mind I think, oh my gosh, she doesn't want to do our meeting next Thursday. What did I do? What did I say? Now it has absolutely nothing to do with you and what could be going on in your life, and it has everything to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
In which I just made myself super self-important when it was literally something along the lines of, I got to take my car in for an inspection, or I got to go to a doctor's
Right.
appointment, or I'm supposed to meet a friend of mine that's flying in and I haven't seen her in 20 years and she's only going to be in town that day,
Right.
right? All the possibilities are endless,
Yep.
but I'm not acknowledging that anything in your life could be more important than spending an afternoon talking with me.
Right. Right. And then you've just created a whole ball of stress for yourself.
Exactly. And for the other person, because I
Right.
probably sent that energy out
Right.
when
Yep.
I didn't receive the no with grace and compassion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And how easy is it to extend grace and compassion? Okay, let's go back to kindness and generosity. How easy is it to expend joy and generosity to a person in that moment where, okay, no problem. Hope
Right.
everything's good.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And I just offered generosity by saying, hey, whatever it is, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Being entrepreneurs and being coaches, we have no shows all the time. And when they don't show, for me, it's always like they had an emergency. I hope everything's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't respond to, I hope everything's okay, then it's, Okay. Well, maybe everything wasn't okay, and they'll reach out when it's time. It's not,
Awesome.
it's if they cancel, it's not about me.
Right.
It is not about me. And that has taken some time to really learn. And it's not something that is only thing that's coming to mind is a habit. It's not something that I habitually go to. Sometimes my ego still steps in and goes,
But okay, so bringing it back to yoga,
yeah,
it does become a habit when we start to do this on a regular
yeah,
basis
yeah,
because we write that programming into our brain so that the next time that a person says, hey, can't make our appointment on Friday, our first response is, okay,
yeah,
no worries.
yeah,
Here's the reschedule link.
yeah,
And then that's it.
yep,
We let it go.
yep,
We let it go
yep,
because it's not an us thing, it's a them thing. And
yeah,
they figure it out the way they need to figure it out.
yeah. Now I have had a few people, it's been very few, but and this is the flip side. I have had a few people who I have said no, or I have said okay to, and then they like they've canceled and it's like, okay, no worries. And then they'll flip it back and be like, well, don't you want to know why? And it's like, well, no. And it's like, well, I'll
Yes.
tell you why.
And it's funny because I used that today. A photographer showed up to the Thursday class that I teach, and I made sure to, let everybody know, please, are you okay with pictures being taken of you? And somebody said, no, and this is why. And I was like, thank you. But you don't owe me that part of the
Yeah,
explanation. Thank you
yeah,
for offering it, but just recognize that's not part of our friendship or our relationship that you have to give me that. I'm
right,
letting you
right.
know that you can just say no,
Yeah,
and I'm good with that.
yeah, yep, absolutely. Yeah, so
And that's that
boundaries are important, and they will probably be the hardest thing that you will do for your self-care.
absolutely, because it goes against a lot of what we've been talking about already. It goes against the societal, generational, familial parameters that have been given to
Yeah,
us.
yeah, yep.
And what's really fantastic is um, the current generations are really busting down those barriers and saying, I was talking with somebody and she was talking about her daughter, and her daughter's boyfriend was going to do a master's program in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom said, well, that's great, because the daughter was talking about going to Europe with him while he did his master's program. And she went, well, that's great, but what are you going to do about your job? And she said, oh, I'm going to tell them that they either allow me to do it remotely or I'm going to quit. And her mom was just like, wait, what? And she goes, I'm only as loyal as my paycheck.
Yeah, yeah. Businesses really need to flip and be more loyal to their employees than the other way around.
Yes. And that goes against a lot of what you and I and our generation
Mhm.
was taught. And, it's bitten a lot of us in the behind.
Yeah, yeah.
A pharmacist friend of mine, 6 months before hitting his retirement age, was let go by a large pharmacy corporation. And then the funny thing, rehired as a contractor because they were desperate for pharmacists. And that was in a very short time span. So it was very strategic.
And he probably got paid more as a contractor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
If they had just kept him for 6 more months, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yep.
Yeah,
But that changed, that flipped the way that he viewed it flipped the way that he viewed employment.
yep,
because now he's like, I'm only as loyal as my paycheck.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to get to one more before we may have to make this a
Two
two.
part? Yes, I think
Um,
so, because this is huge.
yeah, but I do want to get to movement as a
Yes.
stress reliever, because this is another one that you can do when you're in a crowd and you're feeling stressed. So you being the yoga teacher, I'm going to let you take this one because I mean, I know what the movements are, but I'm going to let you explain them. And if you demonstrate them,
There's
that's great.
so many, so many things. So something as simple as just shifting from side to side, right?
You can do it in
Shifting
your
side.
chair too. You don't have to stand up. So I'm sitting
Yes.
down.
Yes,
So you can
exactly.
still do
So
chair yoga.
one of the things that we talked about was, how we responded to our kids when they were little, and we kept telling them, sit still, don't shake, don't move.
Yeah.
But then what do you see animals do when they feel
Well,
anxious or when they feel nervous or just randomly?
what do you do when you're holding a baby and they're crying? You're rocking back and forth. You're shaking them. You're patting them. That's why
Yes.
tapping works.
Yes. And then adding something like helicoptering the arms. And the big portion here is going back to the energy. Anywhere that you have tightness, stiffness, immobility in your body is an area where energy is compressed.
Yep.
And we talk a lot about the energy work. The physiological component of that is anywhere where you have tightness in your body, not only is that area tight, the muscles tight, the fascia's tight, but anything held within that area is being compressed. So think arteries, veins, nerves, lymphatic vessels. So anything that's traveling through that area is now having to travel through a resistant area. So when we soften the muscles, when we loosen up a particular area, that allows not only the energy to flow, but also the internal mechanisms of the body to move more efficiently. So we're
Mm-hmm.
creating more circulation in that area. So one thing that we can do, and this is kind of fun, and again, you don't if you're in a space and you're not wanting to be really obvious
Right.
about how
Right.
you're self-soothing, you can just grab a hold of your earlobe and start to run your thumb behind the ear, right? So you can tug on the earlobe, you can
So like
massage the area behind the ear. So that little
right back
space
here.
right behind the ear.
They're back here.
Yep, right along there, but just bringing the thumb behind the earlobe and holding on, and then just bringing the thumb along the back of the ear and then down to the earlobe. And if you notice that you need to swallow, you are activating the parasympathetic nervous system, you're activating the vagus nerve, you are slowing your heart rate, slowing your breathing.
Right.
Internally, it's sending messages to your muscles to soften and relax.
Yeah.
And so that's something really, and you can do it on both sides. You can do it by just bringing the both fingers behind the ear. You can also do it by humming.
Something's clearing.
Yep. Yep. And again, if you're yawning, you can actually do yawning as well too. The first time you yawn, you may have to like force the
Okay.
yawn,
Real
but then
quick. I
yeah.
am so um allergic to the word yawn
Okay, say more.
that I will start yawning when people start talking about yawning. I'm getting better at it, but my kids love to tease me. They will sit there and just start yawning. All three of them will just sit there, even now, just start yawning just to make me yawn.
That's funny. There's something to unpack in there.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, we can unpack it on another episode.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Okay. So movement can be bouncing up and down on the toes, bouncing up and down in the seat. There's a whole lot to bouncing because it's, again, shaking up the body, shaking up the muscles. Think of, what do you feel like after you get done jumping on a trampoline or running or walking? But just doing that in a standing motion shakes up and loosens muscles, loosens fascia tissue, loosens energy. And the more that you do it, so here's a fun little exercise, is to just go through some movement, like inhale, open the arms or bring the arms up, and then exhale, bring fingertips down to the ground. You've got a big bend in the knees. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, bend the knees, fingertips down. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, drop the arms, bounce, jump, whatever you want to do. And then bounce and jump for about at least 30 seconds, and then come to stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll feel this energy move through your whole body, and it's really kind of fun.
Yeah.
And the more that you do it, the more of an energy surge you're going to feel. But it's paying attention in that second when you first come into stillness, and then you start to see and feel just how much a simple little exercise creates a big change within you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's those little, those little movements are so easy to do even when you're in a crowd. I love the ear one, especially if you don't want to have attention drawn to you.
Mm-hmm.
You can also roll your shoulders, squeeze your shoulder blades together and let them go. Just little micro movements to, move your neck around. Just those little movements. Playing with your
Wiggle,
fingers.
wiggle your toes,
Yep.
circle your
Yep.
ankle.
Yep.
We're going to
Yeah.
have to do another one talking about the aging process. Somebody looked at me the other day and said, we don't have 30 years. And I thought, screw you. I got at least 50 left
Oh
in me.
yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, my aunt, my great aunt just passed away this past, I want to say she was like 6 months away from being 108. She was 107.
Wow.
Yeah. She was 107. My grandmother was 94. My great grandmother was 101 or something like that. I have longevity in my family. So I'm going to be around, thumbs up. I'm going to be around for another 50 years.
And I think there's a big energetic component of that. If you say, I'm going to live a long time, you behave in your choices, in your
Yep.
movement, in the way that you move through your daily life. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. I could get hit by a bus or whatever. We're not guaranteed those things. However, by saying I got a lot of years left in me, then when I go to do things, when I go to do movement, just like we were talking about with this, how I accept
Mm-hmm.
and repel different things is going to be based on how I view my expectation of my presence here.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah. So I made a note to put down on our episode sheet, one on yawning
Yes.
and one on aging. So
Fantastic.
we'll add that to it. So I know we don't have comments on during the live, but I would love for anybody who's watching this to drop comments down below and let us know, what do you use for stress relief? And we will definitely have a second episode for this to go over the other half of our list.
Yeah, because the
um,
list is long. There's a lot of resources in
there are
navigating stress.
there are and we haven't even touched on what people use that is unhealthy for them to manage their stress. So that's going to be a whole nother, this may be a 3-parter. I don't know.
I think
Um,
so. Yeah, because I was
but
gonna say that's a whole long list in itself
yeah,
as well too.
yeah, but we would love to hear, what do you use to help manage your stress when you're in that stressful situation? What are you doing to help bring yourself back into the present moment so that you're not feeling that stress?
Absolutely. Would love to hear people's thoughts. Was there something specifically that really resonated with you that you hadn't thought of using, or is there something that you're already using all the time, and that's helping you in your journey of stress? And then feel free to, any thoughts that came up, please share that with us. And if you have a specific topic that you would like us to cover in an episode on its own, please share that with us as well too.
Absolutely. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and make sure you go over to Eva's YouTube channel and also subscribe to her channel. We're trying to figure out how we can get this on both channels, but we haven't been able to figure that out yet. So we may have to just create our own channel just for this, and that way we'll both have access to it. We'll have to talk about that later. Just popped in
Yep.
my head.
Oh, yeah. Hey, and this is a week of downloads too. Like this is
Right.
a week that if something is coming up and you're getting creative ideas with something, this is a week to pay attention to those.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So thank you everybody so much for watching. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time.
Take care.
All right, let's end.